What is the best way to get into FPV? The actual answer to that question is to buy a controller and then practice in the simulator. But a lot of people don't like that answer. A lot of people want to get into the air as soon as possible. And in order to shortcut the learning curve of getting into FPV, building your quad, setting it up, configuring it, etc., they just want to buy one kit, spend their money, get something, take it out of the box, have it all ready to go, and that's what we're looking at today. This is the GEPRC TinyGo kit, and it is another entry into that category, where for about $200 or maybe a little more, depending on which one you get, you can get a quadcopter, goggles, battery charger, controller, and everything comes out of the box ready to go. You don't even have to plug it into a computer or bind it or any of that nonsense. That at least is the promise. We're going to see if it pans out today. I'm Joshua Bardwell, and you're going to learn something today. The first thing I noticed about the GEPRC TinyGo is that it comes with I'm actually kind of impressed with the bag that it comes with. That's kind of a dumb thing to say because, like, who really cares? But it's nice. Now, before we get further into this review, I have to acknowledge that there are two different versions of this quadcopter. The version that we're looking at here comes with the Caddx Loris. And the Caddx Loris is a 4K camera. It's going to record 4K footage on a DVR on the SD card in the quad. It's not going to transmit 4K footage over the air to your goggles. Nothing does that, not even DJI. It's going to transmit standard definition analog video to your goggles, but it's going to record high definition on board. There's also a version that has a regular Runcam Nano 2, and it's just a standard analog camera with no DVR on board. The standard analog version costs $219. The Caddx Loris version that we're looking at in this video costs $279. So as we go through this review, we can't help but compare the TinyGo to other similar kits from other manufacturers. And one of them that I'm thinking of is the Emax TinyHawk Ready to Fly kit. There's also the Newbeedrone Acrobi Ready to Fly kit. And BetaFPV has two different ready-to-fly kits, one of them the basic version and one the advanced version, and the advanced version also comes in close to this price. But as we do think about price, we got to keep in mind that this GEPRC kit is coming in a little more expensive. Most of those guys come in close to $200. This one's coming in at $220, or for the Caddx Loris, it's $279, but none of the other kits have a 4K recording on board, so that $279 price might be justified, just since there's nothing else out there competing with it. Another thing that makes the TinyGo stand out is that this is not a tiny whoop in the traditional sense. The TinyGo is much larger than that, and it is wired for 2S voltage. Whether that's a good thing or a bad thing depends a lot on what you intend to do with it. A little 65mm 1S Tiny Whoop is great for flying indoors, but it may not be the best thing to learn on, especially if you're a beginner. And let's face it, a ready-to-fly kit like this is absolutely tailored for someone who is just getting started. By the time you've bought your own controller and your own goggles, you would also just buy a separate quadcopter. You wouldn't have any use for a kit like this. The larger, more stable drones are a little bit easier to learn to fly, I think, especially because I think it's better to learn to fly outdoors where you don't have anything to crash into. Everybody thinks, oh yeah, you should learn to fly indoors with a tiny whoop. It is super hard to fly a tiny whoop indoors. There's so many things to crash into. I learned this the hard way when we shot a Rotor Riot episode trying to teach this guy to fly in one day. We had 24 hours to take him from not being able to fly at all to flying a quadcopter for the first time. And we did it. And we thought, oh, we'll put him on the simulator, then we'll put him on a tiny whoop. He had so much trouble flying, he just kept crashing into the furniture. But we took him out to a golf course, an empty golf course, and we let him fly Drew's 5-inch, and he actually was fine because he could just get up in the air and there was nothing to crash into. So I think that there's definitely a place for 65mm tiny whoops. Of course there is. They're so fun to fly. But I definitely think there's an argument that a little bit bigger quad with a little more stability and maybe the ability to take it outside and maybe deal with the wind for just a little bit more. This is not going to be great in the wind. No quad of this size really is, but it's going to be better outdoors than a true tiny whoop. The motors on the TinyGo are 1102 in size and 10,000 kV. And you can immediately see that combined with the weight for the Caddx version, it's about 55 grams. For the standard RunCam Nano version, it's closer to 48 grams. Those motors combined with that weight and these props mean this is not a high-speed racing drone. It is intended more as a smooth cruiser. We're going to see how it flies when we take it outside, but the specifications certainly start to paint a picture. The video transmitter on the TinyGo goes from 25 to 200 milliwatts and no more. You're probably going to get acceptable range on 200 milliwatts. On 25 milliwatts, the smaller quads really suffer. And it comes with a little dipole antenna, not a fancy circular polarized antenna. If you wanted to improve the performance, you almost certainly could by putting an antenna on like a Luminaire Axie Micro or a TBS Triumph Micro. And you can see it does have a UFL connector here, so there would be no soldering involved. You would just sort of peel this glue off, peel the connector off, and put a new antenna on. The receiver on this quad is not going to look familiar to most people, and that's because it is not any standard receiver that you might have run into before. It's not a FreeSky XM Plus or anything like that. It is a receiver made specifically by GEPRC for use with their controller. So let's take a look at the controller. This is the GEPRC GR8 controller, and when I first saw it in the demonstrations, I was prepared to be a lot more impressed than I am now, because in my mind it was bigger and more substantial than it really is. Seeing it in my hands, it's clearly more of a toy-grade controller. The gimbals don't feel particularly impressive. They don't feel bad, and we'll see how they fly when we take it outside and fly it. It fits well in the hand. I do like the curved profile. I think it does make it fit pretty well. However, when I think about how I would actually be pressing the switches, now it gets a little more awkward. Like if I just hold it like this, yeah, that totally works. But if I have to press a switch, now I guess that's okay. Not the end of the world. As far as pinching goes, yeah, it works okay. And yeah, getting the switches though, while you're pinching, the ergonomics are a little weird. On this shoulder, there is a 3-position switch, and you can see it's pre-labeled acro, horizon, and angle mode. Another 3-position switch here for normal, buzzer, and crash flip. We've got this off-on switch. It is a nice tactile hard switch that is not going to get pressed by accident. And we've got this 1, 2, 3 button. And what this does is it switches between one of 3 binds that you've got. So this comes pre-bound with the TinyGo quad, but you can bind it to other quads that you might choose to fly with the same controller, and you can bind it to up to 3 of them. But there's a catch. You can only use this controller with the GEPRC receiver. Like when I first saw this, I assumed it was going to be FreeSky D8 mode, like so many cheap controllers like the BetaFPV Light Radio, or pretty much all of the other competitors to this. And the advantage of having the controller be FreeSky D8 mode is that you can use it with pretty much any tiny whoop out there and most larger quadcopters, as long as you just buy a D8 mode receiver, and there are tons of them out there. The fact that this only works with the GEPRC receiver is definitely going to limit your ability to continue to grow going forward. I mean, so what? You just get the GEPRC receiver. Well, that's not going to work if you want to fly it with a little tiny whoop, because the tiny whoops typically have built-in receivers and they do FreeSky D8 mode, and you're just kind of out of luck here. Interesting choice, GEPRC. Continuing across the top of the controller, we've got this aux switch right here. It's a 3-position switch. It has no predefined function. It's just one more aux channel. You can go into Betaflight and configure it to do whatever you want it to do. And then this switch here is a 2-position switch, and it's the arm disarm switch. On the back of the controller, there is a bind button. This is also the calibration button, I guess, to calibrate the gimbal endpoints. And there's a second button here, which has no function. Maybe they're saving it for future use. There is something about these buttons that you should notice, and that is that if you set the freaking controller down on the table, you push the bind button. Doesn't seem like that's a good thing. I mean, probably when that happens, the controller will be off, but I don't know. So odd choice, odd choice. The controller is powered from 4 AA batteries. Probably going to use Eneloops or something, I would suggest, but it doesn't have any built-in battery and has no facility for use with like a LiPo or anything like that. Ew, that's not good. Listen, can you hear this? It's got a really rough feel. It's just, I mean, what do you expect? But there's better gimbals in the BetaFPV Lite Radio, for example. As I look at the goggle, I can't help but get a vague sense of deja vu. I don't know if GEPRC has manufactured this originally or if this is a rebrand of another goggle, because it just feels very familiar, but I can't put my finger on which goggle this might be a copy of. Regardless, the goggle has a built-in battery. It's charged via USB. It has an SD card for DVR, so it does record DVR. There's a power button, a search button and menu button. The record button starts and stops the DVR, and there's a band and a channel button. It does have diversity. It's not clear whether it is antenna diversity or whether it's dual receiver diversity. Both of them can work well, but dual receiver diversity works better. Wouldn't be surprised to see antenna diversity on a goggle at this price point. The antennas that it comes with are these little 5 gigahertz rubber ducky style, they call them, and they're just not very good. I mean, in general, they're just not very good antennas. This is an easy place to upgrade if you're looking to get more range out of your video link. You can check out my website, fpvknowitall.com, where I have a section with product recommendations, including upgraded antennas. Antennas like the Vaz Ion V2, like the Lumineer Axie. You could even put a patch antenna on here since it has diversity and get extended range. You could spend between $10 for a single antenna or maybe $20, $25 for a patch antenna and end up with way, way better range. And if you decide to upgrade the goggles later, those antennas can be moved over to your new goggles as well. The screen on the goggles is 800 by 480 resolution. It is a 4.3 inch screen, and it does have in front of it a little bit of a lens, which means that it's going to be magnified just slightly, and it's not going to feel like you're staring at a screen that's like 2 inches in front of your eyes. The problem with that is when you're staring at something very close to your eyes have to kind of pull together and move a lot, and it can create fatigue over a long period of time. So having a lens that makes the screen look like it's further away reduces eye strain and eye fatigue. As far as fit goes, let's put them on my face. It's not the worst I've ever. It's not the worst I've ever worn. It's not bad. There's definitely light leak at the nose for sure. Let me turn the screen on so I can make sure I've lined it up with my face correctly. Yeah, okay. There's definitely a little light leak at the nose. You can see that my nose is literally up inside the freaking goggle. If I were to put it like this, which you might think it's riding too high on my face, but when I center the screen on my face, I guess it doesn't matter that my nose is inside the goggle. Okay, that does fog up the screen a little bit. Well, I guess I'll have to be a mouth breather. I don't know what to do about that. There's a little bit of light leak here around the sides. I wouldn't call it a deal breaker, especially in a goggle at this price point. The foam is actually pretty comfortable. I'm trying to figure out how they've attached it. It looks like it is just stuck direct. Oh. That's not a good sign. The foam is a single piece. It is stuck on with adhesive. There's no Velcro or anything like that. And as I was kind of peeling at it to try to see, you know, how it was attached, the fabric tore. I don't think I was pulling particularly hard. I don't know. I guess that probably doesn't bode well for its long-term durability, but then I guess it's probably replaceable too. It was pretty comfortable on my face though, especially compared to the thin and painful foam that's on some of the goggles. Like I'm thinking of the Emax goggles, which are really not that comfortable to wear. All right, well, nothing to do but go outside and fly it.
What is this? A controller for ants? Oh boy. So now, is this a smooth flyer or is this an acro flyer? Let's do some smooth flying first. I'm going to try to stay close because I'm not sure how much range the controller is going to give me. Da-da-da-da. I'm so not used to box goggles. This feels so weird to me, this gigantic box goggle field of view. Fly a little further away. Get these trees, get some tree branches and stuff in that high def. Yeah. We're going to take it down the fence here and go behind the barn. 200 milliwatts we should be able to get through here without any stress. 25 milliwatts, it's usually pretty difficult. Yeah, respectable. This video transmitter's doing okay. Put some good antennas on here, it'll be alright. I can't really tell how smooth the video is just by looking at the FPV footage. We're going to need to look at the Caddx Loris to see if there's any jello or vibrations or anything like that. Before we do let's see if it can acro, I'm just going to fly it a little further. And I'm just going to see how far it can go. Like, am I going to get low RSSI if I try and go down this way? No, in other words, can I outrun the video? That's totally respectable control link. Jeez. I mean, I don't want to fail-safe it. Oh, there's the video. That's bad video. That's totally a respectable control link. Like, I think you're going to outrun the 200 milliwatt video on this receiver. No problem. All right, let's try to see if it can acro. Here we go. They shipped it with air mode on. That's good. It's stable on 0 throttle punches. Respect. It definitely acros like a tiny quad. It is not got a lot of power, especially for its weight. It doesn't even acro like a tiny whoop. I mean, obviously, the acro is more like a tiny whoop than a 5-inch. It's pretty heavy for the amount of power it's putting out, though. But, you know, at the same time, with a little bit of determination, looks like you can get it to do a few things. Let's see if we can. Here we go. Ready, and oh yeah, you know, it could do a thing or two. I wouldn't think of it first and foremost as an acro machine. Like for tiny whoop acro, you're going to want something like the Mobula 6 with the 22,000 or 26,000 kV motors. Lots of power, really good battery, like the Newbeedrone Nitro Gold. And you're going to have lots of power. No fling because of the lightweight, but lots of power. This guy is pretty chunky. Low battery. Flight time, not that impressive. Yeah, like 3 minutes flight time. Yeah, roughly. Oh dear. Okay.
So that brings us to the end of the video, and as always, the question, should you buy it? And I think that's a tough question to answer, because this segment is pretty freaking competitive. I'll put links in the video description to some reviews that I've done of a few other ready-to-fly kits like this, and you can check them out and see what you think for yourself. GEPRC has tried to do something really original by creating a version of this quadcopter that comes with a 4K high-definition camera. And if you value that, if you really, really want to be able to get that high-definition video, then this is the one to get. But I think for a lot of people, especially people first starting out, what are you doing with that high-definition video? So, what about the analog version of this quad? It comes in at $220. And if you compare it to other kits that are available in the $200 price range, I'm not sure that this one rises to the top. The goggles stand out. They're pretty good. The fit, especially the foam here, makes them stand out. In terms of the image quality, in terms of the features, they're pretty comparable to certainly the BetaFPV goggles. The Emax goggles do they have diversity? I'm not sure that the Emax goggles have diversity. They might. They certainly don't fit as well, and I think they have a smaller screen. So the goggles are average to better than average. The controller, it's okay. It's not great. It's not as good as the BetaFPV light radio, which has really surprisingly decent gimbals for such an inexpensive controller. And all the other radios in this segment use the standard D8 or D16 FreeSky protocol, whereas this one will only work with the GEPRC receiver, a major, major downside. As far as the quadcopter goes, this is not the best flying quadcopter of anything in this segment. But as I said earlier in the video, for a beginner who's learning to fly, having something that is a little heavier, a little more stable, a little more capable in the wind could be a good thing. So we'll call that a wash. I certainly didn't find it to be particularly, like, you're not going to get any cinematic footage. It had a lot of wiggle and wobble and jello. It wasn't a great acro flyer. So it is an okay learner and okay for cruising around and exploring, but certainly not exceptional in any of those regards. You can decide for yourself. It's not going to be the perfect product for everybody, but it might be the right product for someone, especially someone who really wants that 4K onboard recording in a ready-to-fly kit. There are links to this product down in the video description. They're affiliate links, and what that means is that if you make any purchase at that store, after you click the link, I get a small commission. It's an easy way for you to support the channel. Click the affiliate link, go do your shopping, check out, just make it a habit. It's an easy way to support the channel. It doesn't cost you anything. Like I said, I will also put some links to other reviews I've done of similar kits from other manufacturers that you might want to check out if you're shopping for something like this. That's going to do it for this video, though. Thank you so much for watching, and happy flying. Do you see this baby? Isn't he cute? Hit the subscribe button. Join my Patreon. Use my affiliate links. Or just keep watching videos. That's better than nothing.
Goggle Gaga, subscribe to my daddy.